Hi everyone, I'm Will and this is Creating Music. In today's video, I'm going to talk about a song I wrote in G major. Let's get to it. And live the way and take the time all the way to see the time. So, before I talk about the song that you just heard a little snippet from, I want to talk about G major first. So G major, that's the G major scale right there, and you can play it many different ways throughout the neck, but two ways you can play in first position down here would be G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So there's the major scale, the G major scale with the notes right there, and then you're also able to play it like this. And that's another way to play it. And really, you know, it just depends on what you're doing on the guitar and like what song it is you're playing and where you want to get to on the neck. It's how you want to use G major, you know. So, playing it down here can keep you down in and around this part, and if you play it like this, that's kind of a way if you're doing a solo or if you're working out a melody or something like that. So when people think about like G major or any major scale, they think about the notes that make up the scale. Well, there's also more to think about there, and I'll just go briefly into a little bit more that will help you in your songwriting endeavors for sure. And it's called the harmonized scale. And the harmonized scale is just playing the major scale, but playing it in chords. So any major scale, this will apply, with any major scale that you use. So the first chord's always major chord, second chord is always minor, third is always minor, fourth is always major, fifth is major, sixth interval is always minor, seventh is often augmented, and then the 8 or the 1 is major again. So you can keep that in mind when you're writing your songs. So for example, if you're in G major and you play a G, which is the first note in that scale, C, which would be the fourth note in that scale, and D, which would be the fifth note in that scale, that would be called a 1-4-5 progression. And because you know the harmonized scale, you know that that needs to be a G major, a C major, and a D major. And there are some, variances to that rule, but that's a general rule to follow when you're writing songs to make sure that your chords sound good, within your progression. So to demonstrate the harmonized scale, I'll go ahead and play it here on the acoustic. So you have G, 1 chord, A, 2 chord, B, minor, 3 chord, C major, 4 chord, D major, 5 chord. Then you have the 6th chord, which is an E minor, 7 chord, and then you have G major again. And there's also different ways to play G major. There's things called open chords, which are chords that are played down in first position. And the reason why they're called open chords is when you play them, there are certain strings that are vibrating and you're not actually pushing down on the fret over here. There's an open chord. There's an open chord. So G's a good a major scale to look at because you can basically play almost the whole harmonized scale or the scale in chords in the open position. And there's different things and different reasons why you would want to use a bar chord, for example, which this would be the G major bar chord. And this is the G major open chord. So, when you're playing with the G major bar chord, it gives you a lot more control, so you can kind of have accents like. And, you know, so you don't get that open feel, but it's much more difficult to have that. See, I kind of have to throw my hand up, or I can do palm muting, you know, to deaden the notes. But here, it's really all your left hand can do the muting. And, you know, those are two useful tools. So it depends on the song that you're writing, how you want it to sound, and if you want to use accents where it's just like dead notes but not actually any tone. And, you know, those are things I think that help a writer form the song and give the song the expression that they want the song to have. So the song we're going to look at today is one of my songs called Let Go. And the progression I used in this first section is the 4, which is C, G major, E minor, so that's the chord progression. And then when I throw in the vocal melody, it sounds like this. And there comes a time you'll have and laid it down. The pictures unwind, and I will know what to do. So the vocal melody is really staying from the 5th interval of the major scale and below. So we have G, A, B, C, D. So that's 3, 3, 2, 1, 2, 2. And that's the vocal melody. So let's give it a listen for a minute in GarageBand. So let's take a look at my song here in GarageBand. And, you know, I played the progression for you and showed you that. Now I'd like to show the instruments that I use. So I use grand piano, use the bass, and the bass has the melody in the first measure, and then after the first measure, the melody transfers over to the vocal. I also added 2 acoustics, one that's strumming chords, and the other that's picking the notes in the chord. So let's take a listen to this first section, and then we'll talk about it. There must be a time, and we'll make it through. These feelings are mine, and we don't know what to do. And that's that first section, and it's real slow and slow moving and melodic. Now the second section in this song gets into some distorted guitar and has a different tone and feel. And the progression in this part of the song, and we're still in G, is G major, which is the first chord in the scale, A minor, which is the second chord in the scale, and then C major, which is the 4th chord in the scale. And this progression ascends. It goes from G to A to C, and kind of gives the listener hopefully an upward feeling, you know, like things are going to be better, things are hopeful. And those are some things that you can do when writing your own song. Different progressions and how you play them sometimes create different moods. So, you know, when I think of uplifting moods, I think of going up the guitar neck. I'll give you an example of that now. And remember, you can play the G open like this, or you can use the bar chord G. For this part here on acoustic, I'm going to go ahead and use the open chord, but when I play it and record it, I actually use the bar chords in the distorted guitar because it gives me a little more control over what I'm playing. So the progression, as I said, is G major, A minor, C major. So as it comes out of that first section that's that's more relaxed and doesn't have any distorted guitar, I come out of that and I transition in to this next part using a D major chord and hitting that pretty good with distorted guitar, and also using in the drum kit, hitting the bass drum and the cymbals, dun dun, and then a drum fill brings us into this next section here. And so let me give you the understanding of the vocal melody too. What says away and brings us time, choose on the day what will be mine. So that's that progression as we go through. And the vocal melody really just follows the major key again, using scale tones of C, B, G, and then the 6, E. So, what saves away? What gives a time? So that second section of the vocal just does major third, 4, which is the C and D. So the next section is the guitar solo, and I play the guitar solo over the same progression. And during the guitar solo, the notes that I'm playing are really the G major scale. And then in previous videos, I've talked about relative minor, and that's something that I use too in this scale. So, if we start here on the 7th fret, this is an E note. So, and if you look at the E minor scale, this, and that was an arpeggio, the scale would be. What I played was an arpeggio. And an arpeggio is just a grouping of notes that you choose to play. Oftentimes the 1st, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 1, or the octave. There's a 4, 5, 1. But if you look at the E minor scale, which is the relative major in G, the 3rd is actually a G. So these notes are really just structured differently. They're ordered in a different way to create a different sound. And I think when you mix G major with the E minor, it really creates some opportunity to do some really cool melodies in your solos. So let's take a look at the second section of this song in GarageBand. Okay, I'll start a little bit before this second section comes in. And you can see here I have 2 live rock kits. So in GarageBand, this is a drum set that you can actually play with your fingers by tapping the drums. So to bring this section in, I wanted just some extra push and some extra accent to it. So I did the cymbals here and the bass drum together twice to accent the note that occurs in the distorted guitar, and the bass plays that. And then to bring it in, I also, with the live rock kit here in GarageBand, played a little fill to bring it in, and then took over with the drums provided by GarageBand. So we took a look at the progression, and you guys have an understanding of the progression and the vocal melody with it. So I'll go ahead and play this section for you to check out. We don't know what to do. into the solo, and I'll go ahead and play that. Keep in mind that I'm mixing G major and the relative minor of G major, which is E minor. In today's video, I shared with you some techniques that I hope you can use when you write your songs and create new music. Please check out some of the other videos on my channel. If you're a first-time viewer, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you know when I have new and creative music coming your way. Thanks.